Nothing really exciting this time. No accidents, no damage, no bloodshed. Just an average day at my sawmill. I have a pile of logs in the driveway that I dragged out of a marsh that I've been whittling away at. I need to get them out of the way so we can move cars in and out. First thing I do is my memorized checklist, GOWT, G-O-W-T-T, gas, oil, water, tension, and tracking. The tracking's always good, but I check it anyway, turning the wheel in the same direction the saw blade goes. Buttoning up is a little bit difficult because of that gray plastic sawdust deflector I added. It's tedious getting it around the blade, but it's effective. It's been several days since I've used the mill, so I'm moving slowly so I don't forget anything. Pull the throttle handle to see what the drip of fluid is like on the blade. There's lots of discussion about lubrication. Some people use none at all. Some people use lots. Some people use diesel, pine sol, dish soap, windshield washer fluid. There's so many opinions, I don't know what to believe, so I just run a little bit. It doesn't really matter because I have a scraper on my blade that peels off water and sawdust and doesn't allow it to get between the blade and the wheel anyway. I haven't put gasoline in it for a while, so I find a gas can that is not empty. I keep track of the engine's hour meter and how often I fill it. I also log the hours when I change blades. 5.5 hours almost, and not quite empty. The logs in front are pretty small. Some of them should probably just be cut up for firewood, and a few of them are not even good for that. But I have to do the small ones to get at the big ones behind them. One like this, if perfectly straight, might yield 2 2x4s. However, they're not all perfectly straight, and many of them, the sapwood is punky from lying in water for ever since they've been cut down, and I don't know how long that's been. Measure each end, and the difference between small end and large end on this one was about 1 inch, so I raised the small end half that distance, half an inch, so the cuts will be close to parallel to the center of the log. The elastic on my dust mask broke, so I just used my nice clean handkerchief. I didn't realize how much fine dust is in the air until one day the sun was shining brightly and making all that fine dust sparkle. Sawdust that I would otherwise be breathing. The engine's not warmed up yet, so I accelerate very slowly. The slabs cut off to make the cant square. I toss onto a sawbuck and cut up with a chainsaw later to make firewood. Okay, all 4 sides are off now. I set the white scale to 1.5 inches to make 2x4s. The white scale is not a true ruler. It's 1 inch plus the saw kerf. You can get 12 1-inch boards out of about a 13-inch cant. The other inch is eaten up by the saw. So if I cut 1-inch boards using that white scale, they will all be 1 inch. If I cut a 2-inch board using the 1-inch white scale, it will be 2 inches plus 1 saw kerf. My blade guard is tipped down a little too far and it hits log stops that the blade would otherwise clear. The log guard is held in position by a small set screw which has to be accessed from behind the saw. Because the blade guard is round, it will ride over the log stop if pushed too hard at just the right height. I think I'm going to grind that off flat, put a flat face on it, so it'll either hit and stop or miss completely. Okay, that stops it. That stops it. So does that. But this time, it passes over the log stop, but so does the blade. Another small, half-rotten one. It's so soft I almost run out of travel on the clamp as it forces its way into the wood. Not much of the sawdust is going out the chute and onto the ground beyond the floor. My deflector makes most of it fall on the floor. The only sawdust that goes out the chute is that which is carried in the gullet of the blade, between the teeth. Everything below the blade and above the blade ends up on the floor, and I have to sweep it later. I will make adjustments. Again, the clamp goes a great distance into the wood. and measure both dimensions to see which way would be most advantageous in cutting boards off of this. Almost all of these small logs end up as 2x4s. Not true 2" by 4" but roughly 1.5" by 3.5". I brace the cant with my foot so it won't kick out when the blade gets past the last stop. This one, you can already tell, is not straight. When a log has a pronounced curve, the easiest way to square it up is first cut off the horns, then turn it 180 degrees and cut off the hump, and then turn it 90 to trim the side, and then 180 for the fourth side. When a small log has a curve in it, might as well just cut it up for firewood. It's easy to see that most of the sawdust is ending up on the floor directly below the mill. So both ends of this log, the horns, are high. So this cut is wide at both ends, wide and thick, and thin and narrow in the middle. So, with two sides flat opposite each other, we can get a square cut to cut off the sides. The thing I like least about this particular sawmill is those screw clamps. It takes so much time to fasten and unfasten. The larger models of saw have cam clamps. You run the clamp up to the log, throw a lever, and it's done. Measure from the bottom up to the bark to see how much I have to take off. If I cut all the bark off, I wouldn't have any log left. So I'll make a compromise and end up with bark left on this end. Those ragged, stringy edges to the cut are one indication that the blade is no longer one of the sharpest in the box. That clamp is a little too close to the blade. I've already grazed it once. Two 2x4s, a little bit ratty on one end. Almost 1.5 inches difference between the little end and the big end. So I'll grab a scrap of 3/4 inch stick of some kind to put under the small end. I use the shim for the first and the second cut, but not for the third and fourth. I'll start speeding up more of the repetitive parts of this. I'm getting bored watching it over and over again. You may be getting bored watching it the first time. Now these were wider than 3.5 inches. So, forgetting about the saw kerf, I set the scale to 3.5 and cut off only a thin sliver. So the resulting 2x4s are about 1.5 by 3 and almost 3/4. Yes, I could have trimmed them again, setting the white scale at 3 1/4 approximately, but I don't necessarily need these to be exact. I have no idea what I'm going to use them for. Lumber should be stored flat on stickers to allow airflow in and around while they dry. This wood is not green though. It's wet from lying in the marsh, but it's not green. I don't have enough flat space to build proper stacks, so I'm standing it on end in the shed out of the rain. I'll deal with proper storage later. This log isn't so big I couldn't just pick it up each end and set it on the sawmill. But the last year or two my back has been telling me to give it a break. So I'm trying not to use my back so much, use my brains a little bit more. Sawbuck is getting full. I have a short chainsaw and I really need to cut that wood that's in the buck now. If it's really full, then the blade won't reach far enough and part of it goes uncut or partially cut. But I always want to get just one more log. I really don't know your preference, whether you like to watch everything in real time, which takes forever, or whether you like it speeded up or cut and spliced. Let me know in the comments what sort of milling videos you prefer, because I've got a couple of more coming up similar to this one that's mostly just cutting wood. So leave me a comment. Let me know which you prefer. And if you haven't subscribed, please do. 3 2x4s, and a 1x4. Okay, now I really do have to get rid of some of this wood. I built my sawbuck with double cross members so I can cut between them and the wood mostly stays on the rack instead of falling on the ground. Those first two cuts were not between the X's, so that wood did fall to the ground. I did that so I didn't end up with the end pieces much too long. At least I don't have to pick it all up off the ground. The short pieces and the rotten pieces I just toss over the hill. In our climate, they will rot within a very few years. I don't have a firewood shed, but I did string out this large tarp nailed up to the eave of the shed roof, tied with bungees to a couple of trees. All of this wood will be for sale in our driveway to campers next summer. Yet another small one. I'll be speeding up more and more as this becomes too repetitive, but I did want to show the whole day. Now, when I say day, that means a few hours in the afternoon. This one is both small and slightly curved. There won't be much left of this. Square post about 2.5 inches on a side. Another one just like it. Well, it's coming up on quitting time. I'll put in a new blade or a resharpened blade before the next session. Shutting down is just the reverse of starting up. Release the tension. The blade's right on the rubber belt on one side and a rubber tire on this side, leaving tension in there. The plastic takes a little bit of a set. You can feel when you turn it by hand. Now my blade scraper right there keeps the blade clean, and with the sawdust deflector, keeps most of the sawdust out of the wheelhouse and off the belt. But it does put it all on the floor, which makes cleanup a little more work than it would have been otherwise. With most of it swept over the side, it's time for the leaf blower. And one last thing. The last couple of drops of water will leave a rust spot on the blade overnight. A bottle cap solves that problem, thanks to Lumberjack, who gave me that idea. So, a small dent in the pile, but it's break time. Thanks for watching.